What's up, guys? Chris here. I am back to you with another GBA update. It's a trade update. We had a bunch of trades this past week which go into effect for the Week 4 battle, so I'm just here to let you know about the significant roster changes. Normally in the past when we've had trades, I try to do breakdown videos and, go in depth and talk a lot about what happened, but we had 11 trades this week. And I don't have time to do 11 videos. I don't even have time to do like the 6 videos for the various different trades that happened. So this is just kind of one mega video that's still not going to be super long, where I'm just going to kind of run through what happened and give very brief, very light explanations on what happened. If you have questions or you want to voice opinions and stuff like that, please feel free to leave comments below, and we'll be checking that. Me and a lot of the other coaches like to read the comments, and we'll reply to you with our thoughts, takes, and, various things of that nature. So, that being said, we're going to go ahead and go into the first trade, which is the Anaheim Mighty Ducklets trading Hitmonchan to the San Jose Sharpedos for Hitmontop. Now, if you watch the other trade videos that we have going on in the preseason, you may remember Adam was my co-host for the original Hitmontop and Ferrothorn trade, and Adam loves Hitmontop. He will talk at length about Hitmontop, so jokingly he said to Tom, "Hey, let's trade," and Tom said, "Yeah, okay, sure, why not?" And that's how the trade happened. So now Adam has Hitmontop. I think this gives him a little bit more bulk and utility, as he can do Intimidate, or he can use it a little bit more offensively. I think, obviously on the flip side of that means that Tom got a little bit less versatility and utility, but Tom's team needs it significantly less than Adam's. So, it's not a big deal if Tom wants to. Hitmonchan's just fine going back into free agency. And, like I said, it didn't really hurt his team because as of, week 3, Hitmontop hadn't seen any time, and it probably wasn't going to see much time throughout the season. So this is no big deal for them. Now, going into the next trade was a 2 Pokemon trade, and here's the reason why we had so many trades this week. New coach Sork, the Sorkinist, who I want to try and get a coach's interview up with at some point. Don't hold me to that because, again, time frames and schedules. I'm going to try to, but right now I don't have anything planned. Basically, Sork had to come in and take over Joe's roster, and it wasn't the roster he would have drafted. There wasn't a lot of things on the team that he liked or was comfortable using. So he spent most of this week trading off virtually the entire roster. I believe he traded 8 out of the total 10 regular Pokemon. Can't trade the Mega, so he's stuck with Beedrill. But the first trade that went up was the St. Louis Rampardos trading Chestnut and Garchomp for Heracross and Jirachi, respectively. That brings Heracross down to a 1-year contract, brings Jirachi up to a 3-year, or it takes it straight across to a 3-year contract. Sort gets Garchomp for 3 and gets Chestnut for 2. This was an interesting thing, especially because if you look at the stats and numbers, Garchomp at 6 kills is one of the leading Mons in the league right now, and was absolutely the leading offensive Mon for the St. Louis Rampardos. So to have him get shipped off over to Minnesota was an interesting thing. It does make sense when you factor in prevalent ice weakness across the board for the St. Louis Rampardos with Latios and things of that nature. You don't want to have just a ton of dragons walking around on one team, because it makes it a little bit easy for them to deal with later on. He had also used Chestnut fairly efficiently, but, traded it over for Heracross to give him a little bit more speed and some, status absorbing options. Jirachi's a fun thing to do. It gives him a lot of versatility and options, as well as, like I said, again, it gives him, an ice resist as opposed to a 4 times ice weakness that he had with Garchomp. So at this point, it's a pretty interesting thing. Rampardos get a little bit out of it, lose a little bit out of it. Minnesota Timberwolves lose, not too much at this point. Maybe some versatility with Jirachi. Don't really lose a lot by getting rid of Heracross, though. So the next trade that goes on is the LA Nido Kings trade away Gliscor to the Timberwolves in exchange for Slow King. This was really interesting, and a lot of people, were kind of like, wait, what? What did he do? Big takeaway from this is Gliscor gains a year on its contract because of this. So the Timberwolves now have Gliscor for 2 years as opposed to the 1 year it was on. Would have gone back into free agency pool and probably would have been a pretty early pick next season for a lot of people. The Nido Kings, on the other hand, get a bulky water type, something they were kind of lacking. Maybe not the best bulky water type, as it is Psychic Weakness. They got a couple of those things running around. Dark Spam could be a problem for them later on. But again, it's also only on a 1 year, so even if it just helps him in the immediate full run, he does have the option to drop it later on if he wants to. It could be a short-term pickup to patch some holes for matches in the next few upcoming weeks, and then drop it to free agency for something else to help him finish out the rest of the season if he really wants to. So not bad, not terrible. Next up is the Atlanta Haluchas, plural. Guys, it's plural. It's very important. We need to have a talk about this. It's plural. There's more than one Haluchas. Don't let Nick tell you this singular plural thing. It doesn't matter. It's the team name is plural. Okay, so they traded Keldeo away to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Heatran. This was another contract swap. It adds a year onto Heatran, which is a great pick, great value for the Haluchas. Drops Keldeo down, but does give the Timberwolves a nice ice resist, which they needed at this point because they have Garchomp and Gliscor now. Not to mention Chestnut, which still is not taking ice beams, and things were looking pretty bad. He had a lot of ice weakness going around on there. So Keldeo does give him some resist. Keldeo's a great mon. It's a very potent special threat. Heatran to the Haluchas is huge because it frees up, there's no fairy touching that team at this point, running 3 steel deep. They're just, unstoppable at that point as far as fairy attacks go. Offensively, Heatran is just great. Defensively, even then, still good. Obviously, familiarity with Magazone means Fizz knows about 4 times ground weaknesses and working around that. While it does give a little bit of that, it's not a super big deal. And this is just more of what the Haluchas have been doing all season, which is moving pieces around and using value to get synergy and versatility later on. And it really lends a lot of credence to the, as Fizz would say, Billy Bean approach of everything is expendable, everything can move. It just has to move for a reason. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and go on to the next trade, which is the Boston Red Sox trade Kierum to the New York Yankees for Golbat. And while this may seem weird and this may seem like a head scratcher, the addition to this were trade picks. The Boston Red Sox got the New York Yankees' first-round draft pick next season. The New York Yankees pick up Boston's third-round draft pick. Based off standings and how things are going, Shady is the lowest person in his division at the moment, actually. So things aren't looking good for him season-wise, which means most likely he's going to have a high first-round pick next season. Nick is aware of this. Nick is betting on this, and he is using this to get a high round pick next season. So hopefully he can either re-up one of his things that goes back into the pool, like O-Slate, Aegislash, or pick up something else that goes back into the pool that could be very useful depending on how his team looks, like, Talonflame or something like that. The reason why this trade doesn't really matter as far as Nick's picking up Golbat is concerned is Golbat goes down to a 1-year trade off of this. If Nick hadn't have made the trade, he would have Kierum sitting at a 1 year, and he could easily drop it into free agency and get rid of it anyways. Shady, on the other hand, would have been stuck with Golbat at 2 years and would have been unable to drop it. So them trading the two of them and swapping contracts means Nick has a free agent that he's going to drop anyways. Kierum or Golbat, it doesn't matter. This is purely for the pick. He gets the pick. It sets him up for next season to, have a strong opening draft bid and really lock in some power early. Shady, on the other hand, gets rid of some dead weight, and he gets, an additional third-round pick, which probably isn't going to be that good, but another third-round pick is always better than having to wait for a comp pick. That's all there is to that. Next up is going to be the Anaheim Mighty Ducklets again, trading again with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Are you noticing a thing here? If you didn't notice from the column of creepy timbers looking at you, the Timberwolves traded everything, like I said before. So the trade goes Shaman to the Ducklets for Drapion. I think on pure face value, Adam, got a great deal out of this. I think Shaman's, a threat. Even land form is a threat. You still have a lot of versatility options. You have, cleric support options. You still have offensive seed bomb, and you have a solid, bulky grass type in that it's a base 100 pixie. And I think Drapion's a little bit trash. It's kind of slow enough to not be up there. It does hit hard. Stab knockoff is really good. It's got you could run some cheeky sniper stuff if you want to, but without the focus energy, you're never going to match like a, sniper Kingdra. So it's like whatever. But the big pickup for this is actually that at this point in the roster, Sork was very fairy weak. He had almost nothing for fairies. He had like no fairy resist and 4 fairy weaknesses. So picking up Drapion at that point was actually very good. It gave him some stab, gave him some knockoff, and a lot of ability to, handle the fact that virtually every team in the league has fairy or is going to be carrying some kind of fairy coverage to offset the fact that you're running, multiple fighting types, dragons, and a lot of other stuff that hits neutral. So it's not a bad thing, but at this point, the team Sork's building is very strange. Next up is going to be the Atlanta Hawluchas trade Bronzong over to the Timberwolves for Blastoise. This was good for Sork because he got another fairy resist, which he desperately needed at this point. Having got rid of Heatran, he had no steal. Having gotten rid of Heatran and Jirachi, actually, he had no steal on the team at this point. This gives him bulky steal. It gives him trick room options. It gives him screens and a couple of other things. While Bronzong may not right away seem like a great thing, if you've watched the Hawluchas matches for this season up to this point, Bronzong's been pretty instrumental every week it's been brought. It does something good, and it's got a lot of options to throw things off guard. On the other side of that, the Hawluchas got Blastoise, which Blastoise caught, some strange glares when Joe initially drafted it for the Steelix at the beginning of the season, but he had reasons. It's a bulky mono water, which is good. There's no secondary weakness to exploit. You just have to go for the traditional water weaknesses if you want to take it down. You can run bulk on various ways. You can run Salt Vest. You can run Mirror Coat. You can run all kinds of tricky things if you really want to get cheeky with it. The main value here is that this finally gives the Hawluchas hazard removal in the form of Rapid Spin. Up until this point, they had no Defogger, they had no Rapid Spinner. My personal opinion is that, especially in this format, Rapid Spin is better. You can just do a lot more with Rapid Spin than you can with Defog because while you do have the Ghost spin block, not every team has a Ghost in this format. Not every team's gonna have a Ghost in this format because they're not all gonna want to draft them, and the Ghost draft pool gets a little bit thin at various points. In addition to that, if they want to do it, then they have to commit to bringing the Ghost and cut down on some of their other coverage options. Whereas traditionally, most of the defoggers in the format share like similar typings. They're usually flying types. Almost all of them are flying types. The couple that aren't, some of them also share common flying or weaknesses like ice. Blastoise doesn't do that. Blastoise, gives you a lot of good resist, the normal value of a bulky water, which is immense in any format, let alone in this format. And like I said, I just think Spin's better here. So that knocks those out. Going on to the last 3 here. The first trade is by Real Maril to the Denver Bronzongs. Real Maril ship off Rotom-Mow after only 1 match, which it actually put in a lot of work, and receive Magneton, which, having seen 1 match, did not do a ton of work. This is an interesting trade. If you recall the coach's video, Miguel was very adamant about not trading. He built the team for synergy. After his loss with the Cubs, he got a little bit shaken up, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to go for some different things, and I'm going to move some pieces around. Perhaps drafting for one synergetic team was not right. He isn't sure. I think he's still trying to figure it out and feel it out because it is a little bit different than the D-League when you could just all get top-tier things. So now he's willing to move some pieces around and try some different things. And in his opinion, Magneton seems to fit his style a little bit more. He likes a lot of trapping, a volt turn, and things like that. They're things he is commonly ribbed and mocked for, but it's a format and style that works for him. So hey, on the Bronzong side, they get a grass type, which is going to be great when you consider they're in the division with Kote, and they need that. Throw in that it's electric type, it's really good. No longer is, Mega Swampert going to be a safe switch in on it because it's not going to want to take a Leaf Storm, etc., etc. This is just a good value pick. For Roger especially, I question it on Miguel's spot because the Atlanta Hawluchas are willing to move virtually everything around. I think they could have got zone, but perhaps the speed of Magneton will be better for the team. That'll be interesting to see. Miguel has actually done his trade announcement video on his channel at this point. Link will be in the description along with all of the teams, so you are free to go check that out. He probably goes into a lot more in-depth reasoning about why he wants it and the values of it, and he'll try and sell you that it was a good thing and he never made any mistakes and it was great and blah, blah, blah. But, sometimes he knows what he's doing, so maybe this is one of those times. All right, the last two was another double trade, and the final trade of the week in this massive list of trades, and that is going to be Real Maril ship off Infernape and Omastar to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Tornadus Therian and Haxorus. I believe a lot of the perceived value of this was getting Haxorus and Tornadus as kind of a kick-in thing, despite the fact that Tornadus is on the longer contract. But I'm not convinced even offloading Omastar, it was worth losing Infernape here. I think Infernape is just too good in this format. Variety of offenses is so incredibly important in this because no one wants to run a mixed wall. No one wants to do that ever. Traditionally it doesn't work. So if you have something like Infernape that can do a mixed set or can go full into either set, physical or special offensively, you can't necessarily plan for that. You have to place your bets on what side of the fence it's going to land on, and if you bet wrong, it's going to tear holes through your team. And I mean, while obviously Tornadus can run varied offenses, it does get U-turn or regenerator, which I think is a big thing for Miguel in picking it. I just don't think it's quite as scary, quite as fearsome, and overall as versatile as Infernape. I guess the value of this is that, he does have Tornadus for 3 years, and it does have further trade value, so that's not too bad. But the real value, obviously, is the fact that he managed to pick up Haxorus for a 2-year. While I don't necessarily value Haxorus as heavily as a lot of people do in the format, because I think it's just a one-trick pony, it's one of those things that does it extremely well. The commonly agreed upon idea is for something to be good in the GBA, it either needs to be versatile or it needs to excel to an incredible degree at the one thing it does. You need to either be the best wall breaker, the fastest thing in the world, have all the priority in the world, etc., etc., or you need to be able to do a lot of things still very well. And if nothing else, Haxorus does the one thing it does very well. It punches holes in things. It punches holes in things all the way to and through the moon if it, gets the chance. It's a scary physical threat. That being said, again, it's a little bit easy to prepare for. While obviously Omastar is not the super threat that Haxorus is, you have to have a very specifically weak team to look at the roster and go, oh my god, Omastar sweeps through my team, this is a threat. it is still possible to do that. There is still going to be some team in the league where they're going to look at this and go, oh God, Omastar sweeps through my team if I'm not careful. It does have a lot of good options. While I think Miguel came to the realization that suicide stack leads are not for him and not necessarily his style, I think it is a good style that works well. And I think at this point, the Timberwolves actually have a very good, hazard stack team, all things considered. And Omastar could be, a major component of that. In addition to, it could just be another thing that sets up and sweeps if things go wrong. But again, I think the biggest thing out of this is that the Timberwolves got Infernape, which makes up for a lot of the other picks, gives them a lot of crazy hyper offense options, and it's going to be really fun. So, like I said, sorry we didn't have time to go in depth and do a 30-minute video for every single trade that happened. I just don't have time, and at this point, I actually don't have anybody that's like a third-party neutral person to do them with, so this is kind of what you get. But that being said, that's everything that happened this week. All of these trades go into effect this week, so week 4, you will see these Mons on these teams, except Golbat. You'll never see Golbat hit the field. I mean, really, no one's going to do that. So yeah. That being said, thank you guys for watching. Like I said earlier in the video, if you have any comments, questions, please leave them below. Let us know. We'll try and answer them, what's going on, and give you guys heads up and keep you informed about things. Thank you for sitting through the whole video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys later.